Thank you. Mr. Townsend, would you
I
lead us?
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the adoption of the agenda, and we have a few revisions. I'll just run through them quickly. Agenda item 5B1, real estate purchase and sale agreement for development parcel at the Southside Generating Station property will require the board to take action. Number 2, the nominating committee report will be deferred until February. And number 3, staff has added agenda item documentation under 6A1, interlocal agreement and charter amendments. A copy of the documentation has been provided to the board members on the dais, as well as included in the electronic version of the package. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll have our safety briefing. Scott Sloniker? Okay, Sloniker, I say that properly. Unit operator will come up for the safety briefing.
Now, Scott.
All right. In case of an emergency and the need to evacuate the building, we will be using the stairwell to the left of the elevators. Please be aware of hazards in the room while exiting. This would be people in chairs. Be courteous, please. Hold the handrails while descending the stairs. Meeting location is on the corner of Main and Ashley in the church parking lot. In the event of an emergency, Gina Kyle will call 911 and Melissa Charleroi will call security. Fire extinguishers are located to the left of the elevators, and these will be used to only clear your exit. Please leave firefighting to the professionals. Is there anyone CPR certified and willing to assist in case of an emergency? Thank you, Mr. Brost. Please turn your cell phones off, and the restrooms are located to the right of the elevators. All right. A little bit about myself. I'm Scott Sloniker, a unit operator at Northside Generating Station. Primary assignment is the air quality control systems. I directly report to Steve Lankford, manager of electric production operations. Senior manager is Mr. James Stanson, and my director is Randy Stroop. We are all part of Mike Brost's organization, which instills a safety-first culture. On the subject of safety, at Northside we focus on personal safety, number 1, maintaining equipment integrity and environmental compliance, and we, of course, produce megawatts. A few ways in which we stay focused on safety is safety tailboards, which are held daily for typical and non-typical tasks, easy access to a wide variety of safety supportive information and PPE, and the Pass Award program. This award is given for improving overall safety at JEA, such as signs and barricades for transformers, natural gas piping, and various other areas. Designated parking to prevent congestion at building access and egress points. Those are just a few simple ways that we improve safety. And a little bit about myself. I've been at JEA for 13 and a half years. In my present position as unit operator, I perform work as a team leader to provide safe, efficient, and environmentally compliant operation at Northside Generating Station. I schedule and coordinate directly with management in the mechanical, electrical, and I&C maintenance areas to efficiently accomplish routine and non-routine tasks. And I've also been a SHAPE rep for 2 years. Previous experiences, I was a team leader of production and shipping at Taylor Precast for 6 years. I was a purchasing agent at Hughes Plumbing Supply for 1 year. In 2001, I was hired on at Northside Generating Station as a material handling operator maintainer. I stayed there until 2009 when I was promoted to a power plant operator. In 2012, I became a unit operator, and I look forward to continuing growth with JEA. Personal note outside of work, I have 2 children, 18 and 17. One's graduating. Yay. Long-term relationship with a wonderful lady, Kimberly Blythe. We enjoy the outdoors and travel, hiking, fishing. I enjoy hunting, riding motorcycles, and also good movies and good food, as everyone does. Enjoy staying home also with home projects. First trip to Cancun this spring, so I attend Sacred Heart Catholic Church. And that's it.
Thank you very much. We're going to deviate from the agenda just a bit for the moment to take this opportunity to honor someone who has been an incredible asset to JEA for more years than we or he can remember. And you'll see why in a minute. But that's Michael Hightower. And whereas Michael R. Hightower served as a valued member of the Board of Directors of JEA for the first term from January 29th, 1996 until February 28th, 2004, and whereas he served as vice chairman from March 1, 1999 to February 28, 2001, and whereas he served as chair of the Board of Directors from March 1st, 2001 to March 1st of 2003, and there will be a test on this at the end. And whereas Michael R. Hightower served as a member of the Board of Directors of JEA for a second term from July 6, 2007, until December 5th of 2014, and whereas he served as Assistant Secretary, I didn't know we had an Assistant Secretary, from March 1st.
He was the only one.
That makes sense. From March 1st, 2008 to February 28th, 2011, and whereas he served as Vice Chair from March 1st, 2012 to March 19th, 2013, and whereas he served as Chair of the Board of Directors from March 20th, 2013 to December 5th, 2014, and whereas his leadership and extensive knowledge of government have been invaluable to JEA, its customers, stakeholders, and the community, and whereas his commitment to customer satisfaction and his connection with the community were instrumental in the development of our mission, vision, values, and strategic planning process, and whereas his commitment to protecting the environment inspired fellow board members and staff to take advantage of opportunities to create greater sustainability where possible, and whereas his focus and calm professionalism have helped guide JEA's strengthening of its financial position, thereby assuring its strong bond rating, and whereas good humor, support, and appreciation for everything JEA and high ethical standards by this consummate gentleman and professional will be missed greatly by all of the JEA family. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of JEA that it hereby expresses its deep gratitude and appreciation to Michael R. Hightower for his lasting contributions as a member of the Board of Directors of JEA. Unanimously adopted this 20th day of January 2015.
Here, here.
And coming from you, this is really important. Beautiful elephant.
Beautiful elephant.
Beautiful elephant, and it even has a beautiful stand.
You must get a picture of that.
Yes, you need.
Lisa, you must get in the picture, Lisa.
Yeah, come on, you gotta do
You
this.
should be in
Come on.
it. Sure.
Are we having a photo?
Yeah, we're gonna do it right here, come
Let
on.
me use my phone.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Oh,
Where is the press when we need them?
Thank you all, appreciate it.
Can we gather in?
we'll get
Yeah,
them.
come on, come on, come on.
Okay.
You go take a
I think we're
selfie.
gonna have to squeeze in some.
Come on.
Let me see. We have enough cameras there.
Yeah, there we go, we're gonna do it this way. Got it.
Okay?
All right, then.
Got it?
There's one in the back there.
All right.
Okay, good.
All
Oop,
right.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Mike, we only have about.
We have an hour and a half.
I just want to say, seriously, this will be short. You can't express 16 years of saying thank you. This has always been the most extraordinary group of folks. Great board. To the JEA family, this is what I want to say. It's been an extraordinary almost 16 years. Y'all are the very best. When we talk about professionalism, we talk about commitment to this community, you do it every day. And there is a reason why we are where we are with the J.D. Powers Award. It is because of what you all do every day. Those of us who have had the honor and the opportunity to sit at this table up here, we thank you all every day for what you do for all of our customers. It's been a real joy and an honor. Thank you very much.
Somebody you might know. Don't drop that.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again, Mike. Next is, we'll have a public hearing, which I'll now call to order. The purpose of this hearing is to, this is almost as long as Mike Hightower's proclamation, consider a modification of the JEA electric rate documentation, adding a load density improvement option to the economic development rider, and consider a modification of the JEA electric rate documentation, closing the residential time of day optional rate to new customers, and consider a modification of the JEA water and sewer rate documentation, making administrative changes to the documentation, authorize staff to take any necessary administrative actions to implement the approved modifications. Please note, this rate hearing does not impact residential or small to mid-sized business customers. And while this is the final consideration of these proceedings, the board was briefed on the proposed specific rate options at the December regular board meeting. And I'd like to call Melissa Dykes, Chief Financial Officer, who's already ahead of me as usual, to provide a presentation on the proposed changes.
Thank you very much. As you mentioned in the introduction, this rate hearing considers 3 different changes to the JEA tariffs. None of these changes impact residential customers, and 2 of them are administrative. So I'll touch on the administrative ones first, and then we'll talk about the substantive ones. There is an administrative change to close our current time of use rate. We are exploring the implementation of an electric vehicle rate or another time of use mechanism to provide incentives for overnight use. But our current time of use rate essentially does not do that, and we have no customers on it. So we want to make sure no one jumps on it before we have a chance to do the design and rollout of this electric vehicle or other time of use rate. And so we're proposing to close that one as an administrative change. The other administrative change is to delete a parenthetical in the water and sewer rate tariff, which is just frankly a little confusing in terms of how a fee is applied. The substantive change that we're proposing for today is an enhancement to the economic development program that was rolled out about a year ago. The economic development program that was launched a year ago recognized that we're long capacity in the electric system as a result of declining sales in the electric system. And so to take advantage of that and to provide an incentive for businesses to locate here in Jacksonville or to expand their operations here in Jacksonville, we offered a discount. The discount declines over 6 years, but is tied to expansion of load within our service territory in addition of jobs to the service territory. This enhancement that we're proposing today is called the Load Density Improvement Enhancement to the Economic Development Program. And what it does is provides an even deeper discount, recognizing that not only are we long generation capacity, but we also have certain substations and feeders that have additional capacity on those pieces of infrastructure. And these areas wouldn't require additional build for us to add customers to those areas. So it's very geographically specific within our service territory, but recognizing we have additional infrastructure that has additional capacity on it, and we can provide some discounts to customers that locate in those areas. From a discount perspective, under the Economic Development Program, in the first year, we were able to offer a discount of 30% on certain electric charges. This LDI discount would be 35% instead of 30% in year 1, again, recognizing that there are pockets of areas within our service territory that do have additional capacity to supply to new businesses. Otherwise, the criteria for taking advantage of this program is exactly the same as the criteria for the Economic Development Program in terms of the addition of 300 kilowatts of load and the addition of jobs. And this is a map of what this looks like within our service territory. This is not included in the tariff, the map. What it is something that will be continually updated in partnership with Mike's group to recognize where we have these pockets of additional capacity within the service territory. And the tariff references this map and includes it by reference. So when we get an application under the Economic Development Program, we can match up that address to this map to see if it also qualifies for LDI as an additional economic development incentive. Any questions about any of the proposed tariff changes?
Questions?
No.
I think we're good. At this time, I'll call for comments from the public. Is there anyone present who is registered to speak pertaining to this public hearing specifically? Seeing none, I think we will adjourn the, is that where we're adjourned? Yeah. Well, seeing no comments, and we'll adjourn the public hearing, and the board will discuss and take action on staff's recommendation during its meeting immediately following this hearing. All present are invited to remain. And so this hearing is adjourned. The board will consider staff's recommendations. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2015-01 to modify the JEA electric rate documentation, adding a load density improvement option to the economic development rider, modify the JEA electric rate documentation, closing the residential time of day, optional rate to new customers, modify the JEA water and sewer rate documentation, making administrative changes to the documentation, and authorizing staff to take any necessary administrative actions to implement the approved modifications.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Board members have any discussion?
I have a question for Ms. Dykes, maybe. How often is the rider reviewed? You know, we're voting on this today, and I know there's one in place already that's been modified. How often is it reviewed?
We perform a comprehensive cost of service study about every 5 years in the electric system, but we'll review it more often as needed. So if we see that we're getting close on capacity, for example, we would do a review of this rider in connection with that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you. Next, we will have Monica Whiting, our Chief Customer Officer, who will talk about the J.D. Power Residential and Business Wave 2 J.D. Power results. Monica?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, well, we have some exciting news to share today. Last week, both our residential and business customer satisfaction results came in. The business market was the final for fiscal year 15, and the residential market was for our midpoint. So the first news that I'm very happy to share is for our business customers, which do represent small, mid-size, and large customers. We did reach our goal of maintaining in the first quartile. We actually improved 23 points over 2014, and we surpassed the market growth, which was about 15 points. We ranked number 14, and I'll show you on the next slide how remarkable that journey has been. And our largest gains from the business market were in customer service price and corporate citizenship. If you look on the right side of the table, you will see in the business market we were first quartile from our business customers rating us on each driver in 4 of the 5. For the residential market, we are halfway through our fiscal year, and we are currently in the second quartile, and we are currently sitting at the highest score we've ever been at for the residential market for our midpoint. I think this slide is just a remarkable slide that shows a lot of information in one presentation about our journey. So if you look at this slide for the residential market, back in 2012, we were at 589 out of 1,000, and we are now at 682 for the midpoint. We were in the 4th quartile. We are now in the 2nd. We were ranked 116 out of 126. We're right now ranked 48 out of 140. and 5th out of 11 for Florida utilities. Back then, 10 out of 10. So just a phenomenal journey. The business market is equally impressive, growing from the 4th quartile to the 1st quartile, ranked 91 to ranked 14, and being 6 out of 6 in Florida to now being number 2 in Florida. So just a very impressive journey and snapshot. For our business study, I will go through this quickly. There's a lot more information there, and I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions that you might have. What this slide is really showing is that really when we started our journey, JEA was consistently below the national market. For the last 2 years in the business market, we are now above the national industry. Our biggest drivers as we look at our movement from 2004 to 2015 came in the areas of customer service, price, and corporate citizenship as rated by our customers. Those 3 drivers alone make up about 62% of our forward movement for 2015. When we look at customer citizenship, these were the key areas where our business customers really rated our movement, largely in the area of familiarity with energy efficiency programs, environmental initiatives, as well as supporting local community or economic development. For price, I also think this slide is very impressive where our business customers, and the red line being JEA, you can see the growth that we've had since 2012 with our customers and how they rate us in fairness of price relative to the national market, as well as managing their energy use. And then finally, a big congratulations to our key account team who largely service our business market. What this shows is our movement in communications was largely driven out of our personal and proactive communications and relationship with our customers, whether that be emails, whether that be phone calls or visits. Our customers really recognize this. We were actually called out in J.D. Power's national webinar and press conference recognizing our growth and the movement in this area. And then as we talk about often with our e-bill adoption, we also did make the J.D. Power press conference with one of the largest growths nationally in e-bill programs. For the residential study, again, this is comparing midpoint to midpoint, and I think what is impressive here is you'll see that constant movement growth, positive forward movement overall. The big movers for us from a residential perspective are price, similar, easy in understanding the price, helping customers manage their monthly bill. Communication continues to be a big area for us. We are doing very well this year compared to our midpoint. We did have a little bit of setbacks in Wave 2 compared to Wave 1, largely driven off of customers' perception of negative media coverage. That was quite a big change for us. Again, we had positive performance. We were ranked number 3 amongst mid-sized utilities for our online service, which is more and more becoming a big point of customer satisfaction and how customers want to do business with us. And then again, I just wanted to end on this slide because I think it just shows a really positive story of the journey that we're on and will continue to be on. So big thank you to you, our board, for your leadership in this area, for my peers who are just amazing executive partners on this, and all the employees, because this is not something that can be done without absolute focus from the entire organization at every level. So just really fantastic, and we'll actually be presenting at a J.D. Power conference next week, because really what J.D. Powers wants us to share with other utilities is how have you gotten an entire organization on board to have this type of consistent movement. So just very impressive.
That is very
good,
exciting.
good, yeah. Very nice.
Congratulations to you and your whole team.
Great report.
Now we'll have comments from the public that are not related to the public hearing we had earlier. I see we have one speaker, Mr. John Nooney. Mr. Nooney? Welcome. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is John Nooney, 8356 Bascom Road, Jacksonville, Florida, 32216. I thank you, for the opportunity to speak before this board. Just a quick reminder, the first time that I came here, was 3 months ago, it was October. And, I do like to reference the Florida Times-Union. There was this front page headline that had to do with the JEA picks Healthy Town for South Bank property. And, prior to that announcement, I do a lot of kayaking downtown, and I had expressed to you that I just was doing a lot of cleanups on the JEA South Bank property. And a lot of garbage does accumulate in that spot. And I would just do a lot of bags and just leave it there on the JEA property. So after this story broke, and knowing that it's going to be sold, and then there's a 1-year option, and right now it is, still, city-owned property. And I was just seeking permission so that I could really just expand on what should be a powerful benefit, to cleaning up, the river, and having, JEA as what an unbelievable community partner, in this interim, before it's sold. So anyway, going forward, and here we are, here's today's Times-Union, and this is in the metro section. And I don't know, new MyJax app connecting smartphones to the blight fight. And the point I'm getting at with this is that, now you'll have the ability, every day, just to show how this garbage accumulates on this property. But I hope everyone realizes that after any of these big rain events, that all the garbage dumps into the river. And that's a collecting area in that part of the river. So it's always full of garbage. And so going forward, there's a lot of, opportunities, for a lot of groups that have this so-called public-private partnership. And we are formulating what's the CRA, Community Development Area, and the boundaries are from the Fuller Warren to the Matthews Bridge. And this is just this one property, but there's dozens of examples that I could share with you. So going forward, I still would hope to seek permission from you, and if not from you, then maybe just the developers. But uniformly, to really, just embrace this entire project that, we are fully aware of the potential, on so many facets that exists right now today. So thank you for listening. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nooney. We appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Do we have an update on? No? Okay. Councilman Bishop is not here. Next for board consideration is the consent agenda, which is used for items that require no explanation, discussion, or presentation and are approved by one motion and one vote. And this is a reminder, only a single motion, second, and vote are required to concurrently approve and receive the items within the consent agenda. Actually, item 5A1 is the only one that requires action, and items 2 through 7 are provided for information. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, on the minutes, Madam Chair, so on on 3C1, on the scorecard evaluation is the last sentence. So just so, the record's clear on this is, my issue with the last meeting was not that the self-evaluation become part of the permanent record. I just want to make sure that's not the permanent record of JEA, but that it was actually attached to the agenda item of 3C1. So if somebody were to pull the agenda from that past meeting, that scorecard would be indeed in there. So I just want confirmation that that indeed has happened. Okay, great.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. No. Okay. Under strategic discussions and for action, number 1, the real estate purchase and sale agreement for development parcel at Southside Generating Station, known as SGS property. And Nancy Kilgo, our Director of Government Affairs, will have 10 minutes for a presentation. Nancy?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Since the board met in October when we reviewed the results of 2 proposals that had been submitted to our request for proposals for the Southside Generating Station property, we have been in discussions and conversations with the top-ranked proposer that the board selected at the October meeting. We had some general discussions with them about terms and how we would approach the contract, and then after a meeting with them, we began drafting a contract and had several exchanges and phone calls. The contract that's presented to you today very closely follows the content in the proposer's proposal that was submitted. So we feel like we have captured really the elements of that proposal. You have a couple-page summary that just shows the purchaser's name. The purchase price is directly out of their proposal, their stated purchase price for 28.6 acres. They did not offer in their proposal a deposit, but we asked for one, and we have a $200,000 deposit, portions of which will go hard over the due diligence period of 365 days. There are some cases where even those non-refundable portions would be refundable in instances where JEA cannot cure title or survey, or if the purchaser cannot get 3 identified initial government approvals, which are land use, zoning, and development rights. And the reason we did it that way is we wouldn't expect a buyer to close if they cannot entitle and zone their property. So that's why we have that in there. JEA will retain the electric substation, wastewater pump station that we have on some of the external land. We also have a fairly significant electric transmission line easement running through the middle of the parcel that we're going to sell. That's 100 feet wide, and the proposer will have to design their development around that and not have structures built on top of it. They'll be able to do some horizontal improvements, but not vertical. We also are reserving easements for existing utilities within the site and access if we need it for any environmental reasons. JEA will pay JEA's attorney fees, portions of the survey to amend the brownfield to divide the brownfield agreement, which is an environmental agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection, between the parts we'll keep and the parts that the purchaser will take. And then the purchaser will pay other cost of due diligence and closing. Again, due diligence is 365 days. That was discussed in our proposal presentation meeting in October. They have a 45-day option for an extension, for which they would pay $50,000. That's not contingent on the government approvals. JEA has in its charter a clause that says it cannot sell land for less than the assessed value by the Duval County property appraiser. Right now, the total parcel for JEA contains about 43 acres, and the total assessment is, on the land only, not the improvements, is $31.8 million. If we do a pro rata allocation based on the upland portion, the land value for what we would be selling is, as assessed by the property appraiser, is $24,916,000 for 28.6 acres. That would leave a difference now at the current assessment of $6.9 million, that if the assessment does not change, we would have to get council approval to sell for $18 million rather than the allocated 24.9. sorry. Environmental, as proposed in the proposer submission, we have worked out language where the proposer would take a split brownfield agreement. So they would take environmental responsibility on the land that they're buying and future environmental cleanup cost on the land that they're buying. JEA would retain that responsibility and get a separate brownfield agreement with the DEP on the lands that we're retaining. So that really worked out the way we had anticipated. The purchaser may pursue a different access alignment of the prudential extension with the school, us, JTA, and the city. They don't know that they'll do that yet, but the contract provides for that, and there'll be some adjustments based on that final access that they elect. And now I'll take any questions you might have or comments.
Just one quick, Nancy, you said that your opening comment that this very closely resembles the discussion we had back in, I guess, November, and you discussed some of the differences. Are there any concerns that you have?
No, sir. In the language, what we said, the purchaser will have to go to the city, and that's multiple layers. The Downtown Investment Authority, probably the Office of Economic Development, the Planning Department, the Planning Commission, the City Council's Land Use and Zoning Committee, and ultimately the City Council to get zoning, land use changes, and development rights. So the wording that to try to capture what your all's concern was in October was that we've said that we want their submittals to City Council to be generally follow what they submitted in their proposal for their development, design, and mix. And the reason we use the word generally is often in those discussions with the city, the mix of uses or the types of uses or the densities might change some, and so we wanted to have some flexibility built in here that it would generally be a mixed use as presented, but to provide some flexibility as they're in negotiations with the city. Okay. The other thing on the deposit is, while we think zoning, land use, and development rights are very critical, we conditioned our refundability event for those on the deposit to not include any city council incentives or other economic incentives that they would be seeking for this property. Those aren't contingent.
Do I hear a motion for the purchase and sale of the Southside Generating Station
May I
development
ask a
parcel?
question? Is
Well,
the,
we're just going to open it for discussion. Is that okay? Is that all right? Do I hear a motion?
Well, so move up, motion, yes.
Yeah, second. Second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Are we doing discussion?
I'm sorry,
or not?
discussion. I'm getting ahead of myself. Discussion. Now we can discuss. All right.
Nancy,
Yes, sir.
the proposal that we saw from the proposed buyer, is that substantially the same going forward as they originally submitted?
Yes, sir. And that's why I gave that discussion about generally, it would generally follow what they had proposed on a mix and sort of design. They'll probably have to do some shifting because of this electric easement, and there may be a little bit different mix of uses or densities once they get it to the city council.
Because I want to reiterate that this decision by us was not so much a financial decision. It was one in which we thought that this property could be put to excellent use for the city, and that this proposal looked like it would do that.
Yes, sir.
Point. Other discussion?
Madam Chair.
Christine?
So, Nancy, let me start off by saying, great job to you and your colleagues for bringing this into a landing. I know this has been, I mentioned at a previous board meeting, when I go into my office, I've got books of proposals for this site from like 10, 15 years ago, collecting dust in there. Just a couple things and, that I think we just, want to be aware of. I was a little surprised not to see in this agreement any commitment by the purchaser to actually have to connect to use all of JEA's utilities. We've talked about at previous board meetings that, Some developers have gone and asked for waivers on reclaimed water, et cetera. So my hope would be is, given the fact that this is a JEA parcel that's being sold, that, there'd be a little bit of a commitment that the developer would want to, take full advantage of JEA's utilities and what we can offer, chilled water, et cetera. So, it'd be a little bit of embarrassment if this land got sold and it was a JEA parcel and, the full utilities that this agency can provide was not being fully utilized by the purchaser. So, I'm not going to amend the agreement, but I would hope that the purchasers kind of take that into account if they decide to seek any waivers on reclaimed water, for example. You kind of mentioned it, Peter, which, I think, we picked, we had an RFP process. Assessed value is a very interesting concept, right? I mean, land trades at market value and not assessed value. And the market value is what we've derived from an RFP process. So I'm comfortable between the delta between, the amount we have, but, recognizing this $6 million gap. I mean, look, if there was a bidder out there that felt the property was at assessed value, we would have gotten a bid at that. But I think we're doing this, fully cognizant of that. The other thing would be just recognizing also just the assignment paragraph in here. So again, just so everyone's doing this eyes wide open, but the the purchaser has the ability to entitle the property. Obviously, the risk is the amount of money they spend to entitle the property, but recognize the day after the entitlement vote, they could do a simultaneous purchase and sale, and kind of flip the property with the entitlements. And so there is nothing in this agreement that that says that the purchaser would actually develop the mixed-use property. I'm comfortable that if it was sold, that whoever would purchase it would be purchasing those entitlements. But again, eyes wide open that that's how the agreement is structured. And then lastly, I would just mention that the cost of retaining the responsibility under a revised brownfield agreement, I know is in here. Paul, I don't know if we just have any cost of what that would entail, so what our ongoing commitment would be from a financial perspective once this transaction were to close. So I don't know if there's any magnitude as to what our ongoing commitment would be for that new brownfield agreement.
Nancy, you got an idea? I know what the existing was if we ran it out and held the land. It's some subset of that.
So generally, we are in a good position on the soil remediation. And we split that from groundwater remediation with the DEP. There's an ongoing groundwater remediation system that's mostly contained within the parcel that we'll be selling. Or it may be on part of the land that the school board would have in the access exchange. So we'll have some ongoing responsibility there. The best I can tell you is for DEP, annually, we have to submit a 30-year cost estimate. And that 30-year total cost estimate is about $2.8 million at this juncture. That's about 3 years in. So we'll continue to do that. However, the groundwater remediation system is helping the groundwater improve and attenuate, and it would be our hope, the collective hope, that we would be able to get out of that in less than 30 years, but it's an obligation that we have. So part of that will be split and transferred to the purchaser. I don't see a lot of responsibility except for the parcels that we agreed to exchange with the school and the JTA on the road alignment.
And Paul, if this does close, the $18.59 million, where do those proceeds end up going?
Well, they'll go into corporate funds, but we currently have the the asset, the remediation.
Right.
And recovery enhancement of the property on the books at a value of about 28 million, so it'll go to offset that.
Okay.
Other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'd like to recognize the buyers team, Mike Belanky, Mr. Rummel, Michael Nines, Laura Dietrich are all here. Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. Next, we'll have the bi-monthly operations presentation, which will consist of Mike Brost, Vice President, General Manager of Electric Systems, Brian Roche, Vice President, General Manager of Water and Wastewater Systems, and Monica Whiting, Chief Customer Officer. And we'll call upon Mike to begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Operations report,
in a minute, we'll show you.
first quarter of the fiscal year results. And as the chairwoman mentioned, I'll start off, followed by Brian, followed by Monica. Safety, we'll start with safety first. We are off to a very good start this year. We had a lot of focus on safety as we went through the end of last fiscal year and rolled into the new year. Happy to report a 1.41 year-to-date reportable incident rate. That is not down to our stretch goal of 1.2, but substantial improvement over last fiscal year. The purple line up top is for last fiscal year, month by month. The red shows the much lower results through the new fiscal year. Last fiscal year, in the first quarter, we had 14 recordables. That compares to this fiscal year down to 7. So we've cut the recordable rate, number of recordables, in half in the first quarter. And you can see that 1.4 is actually lower than our annual results going back 6 years. So we're off to a very, very solid start there. A lot of top-down, Paul, the senior leadership team, focus and commitment to safety. Scott talked earlier from Northside about his personal commitment to safety and talked a lot about things at SGR, at Northside Generating Station, where they day-to-day are focused on safety and focused on 0 recordables. So we got 9 months to go, and it's a tough business, but we're off to a very, very good start on safety.
Any question, Matt?
Yes, certainly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, if I'm reading this correctly, the average municipal utility reportables is 6.3.
Correct.
Is that right? And there's a big gap there. How are we so outperforming the average on that? I mean, what can you attribute that to?
Well, the population is pretty large. You're dealing with 2,000 municipal electric utilities. Safety is a core value for JEA, and I think we're outperforming them, but we're not at where we want to be. The best in class in our business is 1.2 or better. So while there's a big spread there, I think you're just comparing JEA, a large company, to a lot of smaller municipals, and the average is up at 6.
Okay.
It's certainly a core value for us, something we strive for. We've always pushed hard on it. This is not one we're striving to be top quartile. We're really striving for best in class. So that takes us down to the 1.2. Our peers in the industry are 1.2 or better. And I'll tell you as well, if you look at the investor-owned utility, their average is a bit better than the municipal side. So we're a large public power entity. We tend to want to benchmark with the Florida Power and Lights and the Dukes of the world as well.
You want everybody to go home every night.
We do.
Safe.
0 recordables.
That's the goal.
Exactly. That's the
day.
goal.
Electric systems cost, a good report through the first quarter. Total cost $90.88, all in $5.43 below budget, $2.19 below target. Most of the positive there is on the fuel side again. We had a good fuel year last year. The fuel rate is, expense-wise, is $38.21 per megawatt hour. That is lower than budget by $3.75. It's lower than target. It's lower than last year's actual of $3, and certainly favorable to the fuel rate. So we're having a phenomenal year so far. It's 3 months. We're 25% through the year, but phenomenal year thus far on the fuel side. Price of natural gas has been down, favorable to budget and favorable to where it has been running the last couple of years. Solid fuel prices as well are down. Similarly, on the non-fuel side, the 52.67 is about $2 lower than budget, $2 lower than target. It's up a bit over last year, but our budgets on O&M and capital for fiscal 15 are up a bit over last year's actual, but favorable to budget and target. The financial section is in good shape. A little higher revenues are forecasted than budgeted. The expenses are down quite a bit, 504 versus 462. 58 million is the current forecasted fuel net. It's $45 favorable shift to budget. We had budgeted about 13. We're currently projecting a 58. And you can see on O&M and capital, we're in good shape with about 9 million favorable to budget.
Are natural gas prices pushing down solid fuel prices?
Only on, certainly on combined cycle, and on the simple cycle units, it's close. They're about break even. Where gas is lately.
No, but what I'm asking, are coal prices coming down in response to the natural gas prices?
They're coming down.
They are?
Yes.
Okay.
Coal, pet coke are down this year against budget, and have come down, not as much as gas, but
Some of the value there is in the international markets, that the international coal market has softened substantially, plus the pressure of natural gas. So it's
Pressure on
sort of
gas.
a double prong effect of lowering.
taking a look quickly at the electric system reliability metrics. On the transmission distribution side of the house versus the power generation side, we've taken a bit of a hit in the first quarter. All of our electric service quality metrics are slightly worse or at best flat. Honestly, we had a couple of bad storms in the first quarter. Significant storm, you may recall, in middle of November, and just storms set us back this past quarter. So the outage frequency 1.78, near the target of 1.8. The service availability dipped down a bit. Transmission fault frequency up a little bit. The numbers, while not great, are certainly favorable to where they have been over the last 5 to 7 years. Our semi-5 metric, customers experiencing more than 5 outages in the previous year, a new metric for us that we started up last year. We've improved from a year ago where it was 3.45. It did bottom out in July down near about 2.25, and has been flat at 2.6 for the last couple of months. We continue to do a lot of work in this area, and I think I would just say in the last quarter, the effect of the storms masked or overtook the positive work we're doing. We expect to continue to see those move down as we move through the rest of the fiscal year, improve.
You've talked about storm hardening in the past. Is that something that we're still looking at, especially for certain areas that may be experiencing multiple outages?
Yes, sir. It's really an ongoing focus, and certainly that's what the semi-5 metric is about, is looking at the pockets of area that have had a high frequency of outage and going into those areas in particular, and a lot of focus.
Okay.
We continue to move the numbers, I think, despite a bit of a setback in the first quarter over the long haul. We expect to continue to move all of these in a positive direction. A lot of focus on really the outage frequency, upper left chart, and then the semi-5 metric are our primary focuses for the utility.
Because I know when we get to the JD Power
Right.
surveys, reliability has always been an issue of mine. And,
Yes. And our
I
customers.
think there's a lot of difference that's been made. Yeah.
On the generating side, forced outage rate off to a good start, 1.8 year to date. A bit of an uptick in the last month, but 1.8 is solid, in line with the last 3 to 4 years of performance. Certainly favorable to the 2.5% target. You can see the breakdown for the 4 different facilities. Successful outages this past fall on Northside 1 and 2 and the Brandy Branch Combined Cycle Unit. And then we have a SGRPP planned, queued up in the spring for a couple of additional outages. We had a couple of cold snaps so far this year, and the units all performed well. No issues, by and large, day-to-day, near perfection out of the fleet. And 0 year-to-date, so perfection on environmental reportable events. So we continue to do well on the environmental permit compliance side. Looking at our fuel revenues and expenses, forecasting currently 520 million revenues, 462 on expenses. Started out with a budget of 13 million surplus. It's now grown. In the last month alone, that 58 million has moved up, 19 million favorable shift just in 1 month. On the revenue side, through the first quarter, we're actually slightly ahead of last year. Year over year, we're 3.8% higher on unit sales, and certainly higher than our budget figures. And then you can compare that to the expense side. We're 2 million under in October. We're 1 million under in November. We're 4 million under in December. And then as you look through the remainder of the year, as we forecast out, every month is projected to be below budget on the expense side. So it simply reflects the current view of unit prices on the market. At this point, projecting a balance of 164. A couple more slides. Unit sales, again, year-to-date, looking at quarter over quarter, we're 3.8% up. We will slip this month. January last year was a very, very cold and high unit sales month. Been fairly mild and moderate. In fact, we're, to your point earlier, Peter, we're taking economy outages at SGRPP because the load's down, and that's our highest cost unit compared to the gas. And just the load's down. We expect on the just to forecast on the year to be slightly below last year and slightly higher than budget. We budgeted 12 million megawatt hours, so fairly flat year over year. Same thing on revenues. Operating expenses almost 10% down year over year. That's due to fuel, 40 million under, and non-fuel purchase power, 79 million under. The non-fuel purchase power is mainly SGRPP. And it's planned in the schedule debt service reduction for that project. Metrics coverage is solid. Days cash on hand, liquidity, debt to asset ratio 72. Plan to be 2% down there as we plan to pay off over 200 million in debt on the year. And all things very, very good there on this slide. Rate comparison, we're right in the middle where we have been. A couple of small movements up and down. The only noteworthy shift is that on the right side of the chart, Gainesville used to be on the top, and they've been overtaken by Gulf Power. Gulf Power is one of the 4 Southern Company units that operates in the Panhandle, and they recently put through an $8.40 per megawatt hour increase, both fuel and base. And when you add in the taxes and fees, have basically overtaken Gainesville. No significant movement in the rest of the comparisons. We're about where we were last few months.
You know what the basis for that increase was?
Just fuel and.
That seems hard to understand.
Yeah, it's a big increase.
They're heavy solid fuel. Gulf Power is heavy solid fuel.
Thank you. Brian, you ready?
Yes.
Big increase.
Good afternoon. We'll go through the water wastewater slides and have 2 additional slides to the op report this month too we'll look at. So first we'll start on the dollar per kgal on water. We are going to have $4.37 per 1,000 gallons, which is both lower than budget and lower than target, so we'll meet that this year. On sewer at this point, we're at $8.58, which is lower than our budget, but significantly higher than our target as we speak, 62 cents per kgal. That equates to about $15 million between O&M and capital expenditures. So blended together, we will definitely meet our budget, and we're in the range of our target. On sewer will be a challenge all year long on that. The main 2 drivers mentioned are O&M costs and capital at the end. Both of those together are $17 million under. We know on O&M we're forecast at 133 right now. Unless we have a system emergency, we will be in the 120s that we project to be out by the end of the year. And then the capital at 118 right now, the budget was 131. While we're going to do our best to make the dollar per kgal, we're also cognizant that we want to make sure we're investing in our system. So we'll be right at the dollar per kgal blended cost, and we'll continue to make sure that we're investing in our system on the capital side. Second one is our reliability and customer metrics that we look at each month. The first one on our scorecard metric is we have 443 customers that have had an unplanned water main outage. This means total lack of water from pipe breaks. And we're doing well this year. All 3 months are under the 375 per month average target. Last year we did good. In 9 out of 12 months we were under, and then 2 or 3 months during summer we had several pipe leaks that brought us up over the annual target of 4,500. So we're doing well. We got to make sure every single day and every single month that we manage to prevent pipe breaks through our long-term planning, then when we have them, how to mitigate them and make sure we minimize the number of customers impacted. The second one, our water distribution system pressure, less than 30 psi, similar to some of the power quality type metrics on the electric. People are still getting water, but not the pressure they need. We did have one spike this year, approximately a month or 2 ago, where we had one water treatment plant at the Highlands on the northwest part of town, out by Dutton Avenue, was out for a little bit, where it impacted 10 of the 101 monitors for like a half an hour. And we also had another spike in an area that had a high irrigation at a certain time of day that caused a little bit of spikes. The third one is customer response time, and we've been averaging 70 minutes. We had a 67, 69 the last 2 years, but right at 70 right now on the amount of time it takes for our first responders to go to a site and find out what's wrong with a customer's supply. Many times it's not JEA supply, it's plumbing issues at the customer's house, what have you. So we're looking good, maybe 2 minutes over than last year or 3, but we're still looking good. Next one's our environmental compliance. The first slide, that graph on the chart in the yellow is not meant to be read in this slide. We'll go to another page here in a minute, but it's an insert about our consumptive use permit. So we've been looking at this every year. We're good on an annual basis, and we're good at the overall system, 103 million gallons a day on average, and our target's 129. But we have a new provision, and we'll go through the next slide, related to the South Grid allocation, where we need to manage that particular South Grid a little bit tighter, and we'll go through that in the next slide. The second one, total nitrogen discharge to the St. Johns River. We're at good performance year to date. We're 140 tons. Our target is to be 650. Last year we were at 577, and we're projected right now to be 598. Last year we had a little bit of challenge in the wintertime, so these next 3 months it's a little bit harder to treat the nitrogen during the winter, are key for us. Our next 2 months when it's cold, we're doing well as we speak, and we'll be in the 500s this year. The last one, doing real good on the sanitary sewer overflows, SSOs. Our average is 31. There's a typo electronically I fixed, but not on the paper copy. Our average the last 6, 7 years has been 31. We have 4 year to date, and we're doing well on that one. So good news. So the next 2 slides talk about the cup, a little bit more detail. And the cup has 44 conditions. And I think over the last couple of years we might have talked about 1 or 2 of the different conditions in different presentations. But cup condition 44 became in effect September 3 or 4 months ago. And it was two incidents, or 2 drivers. We had the west to east river crossing that went in play about a year ago, and also our Greenland water treatment plant that went live in full commercial in September. So when those 2 things commenced, the regular operation of that, we have new restrictions on the South Grid. And from that chart, you can look at our limits in yellow. In 2013, our limit on the South Grid was 80 million gallons a day. The overall system was 126. In 2014 was a transition year with the plant, it was like a pro-ready year with Greenland going online, went down to 73.46 million gallons a day, and now we're at 60 million gallons a day. You compare to where we were last year, an average was 46.9. So overall, there's room in the cup from 46 to 60. There is margin there. But that 60.28 really has a 20% allocation factor. What we want to operate on a daily basis is 20% lower than that 60. So the 60 is a letter to the law of the cup. But if we're at over 50 approximately, we start having to manage it on a daily basis. And we'll be fine on years like the last 2 years where there were some wet, a lot of rain days. But if we have a couple years in a row in a drought, we'll be challenged at each of our water treatment plants on the South Grid to manage. One particular we'll look at is Briarwood. The limit now is 3.6 million gallons a day. Last year, our average was 4.53. So we have to deliver significantly less water out of those wells of that plant this year than we did last year. And look where it was 2 years ago, was 9.18. What we do is we transfer water, the next slide I'll show, we transfer water from the Main Street plant, fill up Briarwood's over on Powers Avenue, close to Wilson High School area, on University area. So we transfer water from Main Street, fill those tanks from both the wells at that area and then also from Main Street wells.
Why are these limits going down?
The main driver has got to think about how to do that in 30 seconds or less. That's the challenge. The main driver is saltwater intrusion concerns on the South Grid. And what in our cup condition, and I think the next slide shows in red, the first thing that what the district did was condition 43 and said, let's look at these 3 plants. Right now are Oak Ridge and Deerwood. They're in yellow and red. And let's measure the saltwater or saline concentration levels when you use more water over time and the draw on it, you could have saltwater intrusion. It's not coming from ocean, but it's coming from the aquifer underneath. So that's the main driver on it. So we worked with the district, and our system planning group and the district worked many years before the cup was granted 4 years ago, and in addition now, to say how do you keep the wells run at maybe 1,500 gallons a minute versus 2,500 gallons a minute. If you run them at a certain level, then they'll stay long-term sustainability, maybe for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But if you draw too much at a specific well, then that well can be damaged. So we want to maintain them at a constant, even, stable pace.
So this has been an evolving thing.
Yeah, and we'll go on.
Where you've understood the dynamics of where you're pulling the water from, and then it's an agreement with, I guess, the regulators.
Yes, and we allocate each well. We have 138 wells, 83 wells in that blue line. So the first ones we're looking at, that we're monitoring with some live data. We've ended up doing capital projects to modify the wells themselves, to maybe pull from 700 feet deep versus 1,400 feet, as an example, to run at 1,500 gallons a minute versus 2,500. That's our Ryder Harrow plant exact example we're doing. And that's in red. So what we've done around blue, we have these other total of 83 wells. Every single one of them is going to look at. We have $23 million in capital projects over the next 3 years to evaluate each of these wells at the 14 plants in the blue region to find out what exactly each well is doing and get a baseline and continue to monitor as we go forward and what sort of capital investments, maybe changing out pumps, motors, and what have you. That's all on the supply side. And if we go over there, I'll go to the next slide to talk a little bit more about our demand slide.
Well, Brian, I might just add to Mr. Bauer's question that this has been long-term planning. You really go back over 10 years ago when the first river crossing was put in place by JEA from the Main Street to really San Marco. And then the second one, we just connected less than 2 years ago, but had been planned for about 5 years to increase the flow on the South Grid. But the big question we'll talk about next meeting is, that next increment, and that's gonna be a challenge for us. But we have enough time to plan appropriately for it.
Yes, and the river crossings are shown by the black arrows up there, right where Main Street, where the river comes together. So those are drawn there. And Ms. Alba, you?
Yeah, I might have another comment that may take more than 30 seconds, but just kind of as a general proposition would increase the reclaim use, assist with the management of these wells, especially in the south side grid?
Tremendous. And what we're going to do next month. So what we focused today was on the supply side. I know we got some questions in the last Finance and Audit Committee about the South Grid allocation, so I want to talk about supply. Next month, we're going to come back. Carl Hankins, Carl and Renetta Marshall, both directors of our engineering projects, treatment and our pipes together, but they also do system plan and development. And the key is, how do we get our either future supply, or better yet, lower the demand, and reclaim water on the South Grid is essential. We're looking at changing some policies in our practices on how we implement reclaim on the South Grid, most specifically all throughout the whole system. And we'll come back next month. We have a slide that Paul's drafted up that kind of shows the different levels of supply and demand, and go through a little bit on some policies and practices next month. We'll be here back and go from there. The next slide we'll do real quick is that on our financials, our system sales are up 2.7% on unit sales on water and 3.9% on sewer. And then it dropped down to our in blue box, our revenues are up 2.7%. And it ties back to the last couple of slides. The revenues are up because we've got 6,000 new counts, so each account draws more water too, and that's good for growth. But we only have a limited amount of water supply those new accounts, and a lot of those new accounts are on the South Grid too. So every time you get a new account, you really got to have each of our existing customers use less fresh water, and reclaimed water is a great resource to help them with that. And then the other box, the 133, is our O&M costs. We mentioned that. And the bottom, our capital 118. Bottom left, our metrics will look to be forecasted strong. Our debt is $1.8 billion rounded. I think it's actually about 1.75 or 76, Joe, and Melissa would know the exact figure. Still a significant amount of debt we have to manage on the wastewater system. Last slide. Rate benchmark, JEA still remains in the middle. $70 approximately is the monthly bill counting taxes and fees, the franchise fee. But there was movement on both sides. So we're staying stable and steady. There were two utilities on the right, Collier County and Brevard County on the end. Both went up last month. And on the left end, both Naples and Orlando. So you see what's happened is JEA is going to stay stable as rates. Other utilities are going to keep on moving up. So we're at $70. You got $60. You got some people approaching $90, $95 a month at this point in time. Turn it over to Monica, unless there's any questions.
Will you be paying any debt down this year?
Melissa?
Depending on the overall financial results at the end of the year and how big our capital spend is for the year, we're likely to do a little bit of bond buyback, but it's early just to put numbers on.
Okay.
And Melissa, we got a standard principal payment that we.
About $40 million.
Yeah.
That we'll pay as part of our regular service.
So we're set to be 1.7 billion next year, and then at least.
Okay.
Still got a long way to go. We hit that $2 billion mark there a few years back. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And we're back next month on reclaim.
Thank you. So here I am again. We'll do a brief operational report for our customer experience. I'm going to skip the first two slides because we've talked about those, and the ones that were presented for the ops report were prior to us getting our J.D. Power data. As we talked about in our J.D. Power results, our web, JEA.com, is a very important tool for us. Again, I wanted to share here, if you look at it, it's one of our higher volume and choices in how customers are choosing to do business with us. And we continue to keep a very close eye on our satisfaction and the ease and usability. We just this weekend went through a very significant technology upgrade with our billing system, which is very foundational and is going to enable us to make vast improvements on many of our JEA.com and IVR tools, which will more so benefit our customers. We've been putting a lot of things in the hopper saying, well, when we get the new system, we get the new system. So we're really excited about that and expect to see this improve. First contact resolution continues to be a big focal point. We're doing quite well this year and above our target, and we continue to put a focus on that, not only in resolving and owning all customer issues as they come in the first time, but we're really putting a focus on doing things right the first time so that customers don't ever need to contact us with an issue to resolve. Power quality and reliability, Mr. Bowers, as you shared, that is the #1 driver of satisfaction for both the residential and business market. So we partner very closely with Mike and his team on the reliability and how we communicate with customers when there is an issue. I do want to share that you'll see that the number for December seems quite low. This is the percentage in callbacks. I think this identifies for us we have an opportunity in how we're calculating that. The number is so low because we had 2 outages where we did have a lot of customers request callbacks, but the time of restoration ended up being after the time that we cut off callbacks. They'd be very dissatisfied with us if we called them at 11 p.m. and midnight. And so we probably need to look at this measure. So I just wanted to share why that number looked low, but it really was an appropriate business rule as to why those calls didn't happen. As you've also seen from our J.D. Power results, having customers participate in choice and options of how they get and pay their bill is very important. We've set some very big stretch goals for the year. We hope to get in line with the industry for e-bill, get closer to the industry with budget bill and with auto pay, and so we're continuing to move forward on that. We continue to perform very well with electronic payment. Over 60% of our customers pay their bill every month through an electronic channel, which is more cost-effective and very convenient and good for the environment, and we are outperforming the industry and market in that area. Communications continues to be very important. I'm proud to share that despite some of the challenges that we had during the last wave, our communication recall from our customers continue to increase, and we are continuing to put a focus on that. Our customers do look to us and want to get their communication directly from us and timely, and we're doing well in that area with our communication recall from JEA specifically continuing to grow in that light. Corporate citizenship, as you saw, was a big part of our driver. We're continuing to put great focus on our volunteering, giving back in the community. Hats off continues to our employee base that just really gives a great amount of their personal time to work out in the community and increasing more and more agencies that we support. In December, JEA employees adopted over 16 families to provide Christmas for them, and also collected over 300 toys. And I know that was just a real joy, and people enjoyed that. We also are continuing with our ambassador program and expanding that for the first quarter. Our ambassadors from JEA employees have been out giving over 50 presentations. Teaching, I love this picture of Madeline, through our Junior Achievement Partnership, teaching students about financial literacy in the high schools. And so we continue with that effort. Demonstrating our environmental responsibility in our programs. We have many programs where we help customers, including our low-income customers, manage their energy and water efficiency, and so we will continue to monitor that. As you're aware, that's very important for customer stat. And then in the area of customer assistance, we continue, and we have a big focus in 2015. In fact, I think in an upcoming board meeting, we will be sharing with you some of our efforts in our enhanced partnerships with local nonprofit agencies, assistance agencies, to help our customers in need and who struggle to pay their bill. And so we're continuing in that light. And another way that we do this is through our pay plans and our pay arrangements, and you'll see the volume that we offer our customers of providing bill extensions, and our write-offs continue to be doing well as well. Much better than what the industry market is. The industry market is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1%, and our goal is to remain under 0.2%, and we're well within that at this point. As you know, with our focus for J.D. Powers, continuous improvement is our theme. The market continues to move. So again, for this month, here are just some examples aligned with our strategy of things that our team is continuing to work on. The ones that I would like to call out are the fact that we understand ease of doing business is very important, as well as first contact resolution. For the first quarter, we have already identified over 20 processes or policies that require 2 or more contacts to successfully complete, and we are working on getting those automated and improved so they're easier to do business with. Our big CCMB upgrade this weekend, which so far seems to be an enormous success. And then our electric vehicle rebates are doing well. I believe we've had about 20 rebates so far in the first quarter and really picking up momentum. And then we'll have a future presentation for you on our customer assistance program plan. We're really excited about that and our partnering with local nonprofits. So, any questions?
Just, Monica, is this 50,000 of our families are below the poverty level? Has that number changed over the last couple of years? I don't recall it being such a large number.
No, that information we took from the census, and so that is a number from our most recent census, and it's really looking at families.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we took a blend of our customer base and the different counties that we
So
serve.
what percentage of our customer base would this represent, roughly? I think
That I
Brian
would
wants
have to
tell
go
you.
back and verify. He's the math number.
400,000 families in Jacksonville, so
Okay, so
400.
2.5 times.
Big number.
12.5%, 12.
That sounds about
12.
right. That sounds about right.
Million population, 400,000.
And what I think is important to share is when you talk about customers who struggle with their utility bill, those below the poverty level extremely struggle. But we have many that are above the poverty level, and they still struggle with their bills because of all of the different pressures. And so it is a very real issue that we are very empathetic of our customers about, and we really want to partner with the local agencies and work on that.
Good idea. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Monica, One of the things you mentioned was on the customer response about late at night, you don't want to call after 11. When you look at push technology and you're leveraging cell phones, if you automated it and pushed that way, would that not count as a response if you know they received it, got a confirmation they received it on the cell?
I think when we start moving to text and email alert, that may be more of an option. Our ultimate goal, and Jane is going to be thrilled that I'm committing to this publicly, our ultimate goal is to really have a preference center ultimately for our customers and to provide them more choices about how they want to be communicated with, when they want to be communicated, and in what situations. Right now, the technology is more treat everybody the same. And so, we kind of have to have that business rule that says no automated phone calls after 9 p.m. Ultimately, if we can go and we have a current project right now, we're working on that, where we can go to that preference center. You might be able to set up and say, I'm okay taking a phone call until 11 p.m., or I'm okay taking text or email 24/7, whereas I might decide I don't even want text and email after 9 o'clock. So we're continuing to work on that with the technology.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Monica? No. Okay.
Okay,
Well, thank you so much. Excellent job. Is there any other new business to bring before the board? Any old business?
Madam Chair, I don't know where this falls in, right? But, after the last meeting where we voted, there was some articles in the press regards to sunshine law and transparency, right? And thinking about that, I spoke to some folks and they've asked me some questions, and as a result of that, I've prepared something I would like to read, to be included in the notes, in the minutes, if I would.
Yes.
Right. Basically, speaking on personally, last month I missed an opportunity to brag on the collective accomplishments of the JEA family under the leadership of Mr. McElroy. Those accomplishments are the justification for his incentive pay. Because I missed it, the discussion in the weeks since shifted to scrutiny about the process and sunshine instead of applauding the accomplishments of the seventh largest municipal utility in our nation and the over 2,000 support center personnel, linemen, engineers, and other employees that keep the lights on and the water running in the greater Jacksonville area. If I could step back in time, I would make sure that I pointed out the impact that this CEO, Mr. McElroy, has had over the last year at JEA and talk about things such as how JEA has continued its pursuit of improved customer satisfaction ratings as measured by J.D. Power, with residential ratings moving from the bottom of the fourth quartile to the middle of the second quartile. And with the business rating having moved from the bottom of the fourth quartile to the middle of the first quartile. Also about how JEA has received national recognition by the American Public Power Association for exceeding expectations in electric distribution reliability performance, and how JEA exceeded electric generating unit operating performance by placing 11 of 12 units in the top quartile nationally. Also, I mentioned how JEA has exceeded expectations in wastewater collection systems performance by surpassing all EPA standards, and how JEA exceeds expectations in all phases of complying with environmental regulations and regulatory standards from the EPA and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Also about how JEA has maintained its AA rating in spite of the public debate linking JEA to police and fire fund pension challenges. The fact that JEA has had no rate increases for the third consecutive year by focusing on initiatives that have allowed us to hold total expense enterprise costs, fuel production, product delivery, service delivery, and shared services to fiscal year 2012 levels. I'd also speak to the fact that, yes, we held rates while providing a fuel credit to its stakeholders, our consumers, our citizens, for the second year in a row. And while doing so, we still provide the city with a transfer contribution that is greater than 9 out of 10 similarly rated municipal utilities, a point that is so significant that it is consistently at the top of the list of concerns that rating agencies have for JEA during its annual reviews. It's also important to note that JEA has held its rates, provided fuel credits, sizable city transfers, maintained its AA rating, and is demonstrating a willingness to assist the city with short-term debt challenges, all while our service area recovered from the most significant economic downturn since the Great Depression. Those are the facts that I believe our community should have been talking about over the last 4 weeks, because they are a sampling of the many significant accomplishments achieved by the employees of JEA. As I mentioned, those accomplishments were overshadowed by discussions about sunshine and process, and I believe that that has robbed JEA employees, its leadership, of well-deserved recognition. It has also robbed the public that we serve and the city of Jacksonville of the opportunity to place appropriate spotlight on the things that JEA does to set itself apart as a well-run, nationally recognized organization. My final point is equally as important. As far as criticism, again, speaking for myself, no one likes to be criticized, but Level 5 leaders view critical feedback as a necessary component of the journey towards sustained excellence. They don't listen with a defensive ear, nor are they concerned with the source or the motive of the critique. Their only concerns are, one, are the facts valid, or can they perceive as valid? If the answer to either is yes, those leaders owe it to the organizations that they serve to address the critique at its root. In this case, that will be the process that we use to determine our CEO's incentive pay. It is a process that I will advocate improving upon in the future to ensure that it will not, to ensure that we provide the transparency that our public and the constituency expects. I'll conclude by ensuring the public that your concerns have been heard, and that the process will be reviewed to ensure it has no chance whatsoever detracting from the impressive accomplishments of our JEA employees going forward. The only downside to a situation like this occurs if, one, we don't acknowledge the concern, or number two, we don't carry the lessons forward as we move forward. I don't believe I'm by myself when I say that neither will be the case with regards to this board. That concludes my prepared remarks. I will provide a copy of my comments for inclusion in today's minutes.
Well said.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Excellent.
Very good.
Agreed. And any other comments?
So,
Yeah, Wyman, I thought your comments were awesome, and I share your view. I would only add to your comments that JEA in the past 2 years has retired significant debt, or at least lowered its risk as far as debt service for future boards to deal with, which I thought was amazing, given the circumstances.
Yes. Hussein, did you?
Thank you. So, Wyman, thank you for that. I should not come with prepared remarks, but, I was kind of thinking, how do we just move forward from this? You've dug yourself a hole and you don't know this yet. And the reason is look, I think, it was very kind of clear. I think the OGC, I was looking at the article that ran, and I'm just going to read what he said. He said, we don't believe there's a violation. As to the way of doing things, we absolutely have ways of doing things that we would advise to avoid debates like this. I would recommend JEA use another process. And I echoed that. We're in this weird kind of position right now where we have a process that we need to figure out, and we still have incentive pay targets that we need to define for Paul. And so I don't know if it's right to make a motion, but what I would like to recommend, and if it needs to be followed up with a motion, I'm happy to do it if, Wyman, you agree. But given your great comments, what I would like to see, Wyman, is maybe you kind of take the task on behalf of the board to come back to us at the next meeting with a new process that we can put in place, coupled with working with Paul and the senior staff to define what those new targets are for the next year. We have to recognize we're almost halfway through the fiscal year for JEA already. I think we owe it to Paul at the next board meeting to have not only the process defined, but also what are the incentive pay targets that we're judging him against. And knowing that we're almost halfway through the fiscal year, I kind of throw that out for board discussion my colleagues agree with that suggestion and agree with, Wyman as being the point on that, I'd feel comfortable with something coming back to the board a month from now.
Mr. Townsend?
I don't disagree with that, but I think that probably comes under the jurisdiction of the Finance and Audit Committee. I know Wyman certainly could accomplish the fact that you're on that committee.
I want to Kenny
So I agree with that, and I also agree that the process needs to be reviewed, obviously including the OGC as well. So I think it's a task with the Finance and Audit Committee,
Fine.
not an individual. Okay?
Agreed.
But there is no finance, just to be clear, I mean, we have potentially one coming up, but
True.
there isn't one before the next board meeting scheduled as of right now. And to be clear, we're almost halfway through the fiscal year for JEA, and we have not given Paul any targets for incentive pay or a process. I'm a little nervous of letting the clock run out
I
any further.
respect your nervousness. I think the next scheduled meeting is March 9th, which means we'll have a meeting a week or two after that. So I would not like to, I think there's a reason for having the Finance and Audit Committee.
I
So to giving Wyman that task is probably not the right thing to do. So
I agree, that was a good comment, but maybe, in thought, I don't know if maybe we just, I think Peter maybe does that and comes back in February with some thoughts on process.
Well, I'll let Peter, the chairman, let him speak for that, but I just think that's where it's going.
No, happy to come back with some thoughts on that. Don't have them for you at the moment, but obviously I'd love to see some quantitative measures that we measure Paul against. We have the strategic plan, which is basically the outline we used this past year, and we may sharpen that up a little bit with a little bit more of a quantitative approach to it. We have one other issue too, and that is that Paul's contract is up at the end of this fiscal year. So we need to start a negotiation with Paul for a new contract. And that is very important to get started sooner rather than later. So that is something too that I guess through the Finance and Audit Committee, we may have a subgroup of us that basically starts that process with the help of staff and getting comparables and other appropriate help in order to move forward on that. So
Let me just clarify, and I think I'm correct on this. In the past, the CEO's contract has been negotiated between the chairperson and OGC. Is that not correct? Not the Finance and Audit Committee. So just
Okay.
that's passed. So I just want to make certain.
if that's the case, then that's the way it'll
That's the
be.
way it has been. Yes. Okay.
All right.
Just a point of clarification, but the Finance and Audit Committee or any member at large can make suggestions to the chair.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Include
Sure.
that.
Sure. But that responsibility comes from the chair. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then we will have some thoughts on how to measure.
Not to prolong this, but Wyman, well written, well said, well delivered.
Absolutely. And I'd just like to add one comment. I think that we can do a better job of communicating what our processes are as they are ongoing. For example, the fact that the contract was negotiated really 2 years ago and amid, sunshine and open discussion and a lot of discussion and forethought, and brought up, many times throughout the year for the opportunity for public comment. But we obviously didn't communicate that effectively to draw people into the conversation, and I think that's something that we can do better going forward.
Mhm. I'll be watching.
From Augusta, you rascal. Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the Finance and Audit Committee Chair, Mr. Peter Bauer, for a report on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting that was held this morning. Peter.
Good afternoon. The Finance and Audit Committee did meet this morning to review the interlocal agreement and charter agreements with the city. Unfortunately, we do not have an agreement at this point because time is of the essence and we want to be responsive to the city. We have agreed to meet in approximately 10 days to review this matter once again, and hopefully we will have an agreement at that point that the Finance and Audit Committee can recommend to the full board, but at this point we do not. And that's my report.
Well, do you want to announce the next meeting?
Yes, it'll be, I'm sorry, March 9th is the normally scheduled meeting, but we will have the interim meeting in about 10 days for this specific purpose.
Excellent, thank you. The Workforce Committee report is next, and the Workforce Committee consists of myself and Ron Townsend, and we met on Tuesday, January 13th. The committee meeting was observed by Mr. Wyman Winbush. The committee discussed topics for information, including performance-based compensation and our continued commitment to that, succession planning, diversity and inclusion, employee satisfaction initiative, and benefits preparations for 2016. There were no action items as a result of the meeting. The next Workforce Committee meeting will be scheduled as deemed appropriate. This concludes the Workforce Committee report. And next, the Managing Director CEO's report. Paul?
Just a few brief comments, Madam Chair. May I lead off by thanking Mr. Winbush and the Chair on behalf of the 2,000-plus JEA employees. We strive very hard to achieve those results, and for recognition from the board, it truly is satisfactory, so thank you. We heard Monica mention a couple of times the CC&B upgrade. It's really the customer billing and support system. This was a huge undertaking, and I think she downplayed it a bit. It was a massive team effort. We actually came down Friday night, so our JEA.com and all the billing and customer service support systems were taken down. There are over 20 key systems that interface into this system, and the old system was moved out and a new system was brought in after months, if not years, of planning. So between Monica's team and Paul Cosgrave's team and all of the other folks in the organization, just did an outstanding job. We came up on schedule, and we're performing well, and all signs are we've had a successful integration. It's a huge, huge effort, so thank you to the team. Our executive leadership team is really going to focus on leadership and people this year, and we're going to kick off the year later this week with a training session with Nat Glover. Nat's going to come in and lead us through a couple of hours of leadership training, and I think Nat brings a wonderful perspective to our team as we serve the same community. Monica mentioned again the rolling out of the customer assistance program, and to Mr. Townsend's comment, we have 50,000 low-income poverty folks in our community, and that in itself is a challenge, and historically has been a challenge. But we really have to focus on this one as we go forward. The challenge here will be that the cost structure for those folks will continue to either stay the same or rise. The folks that have money that are not in poverty, and I'll give a couple of examples. I happened to be at a business luncheon last week, and we're talking about energy because the JEA guy's there. And one of the young gentleman said he moved into a new house, 2,800 square feet. His electric bill was $85 a month on average. Energy efficiency, okay, historically that would be $200. Have the money, energy efficiency, insulation. But another gentleman there who is very high on the affluent level moved into what I will call a new mansion, doubled the size of his existing home, and his electric bill was cut in half. So energy efficiency. So, and then finally, we had in the paper, it was reported, an architecturally designed energy efficiency home out in the beaches. It's 4,400 square feet, LED lighting, every conceivable energy efficiency dollar. And again, the number was $85. 4,400 square feet, no shade trees whatsoever. I've seen the structure. It's a big box that sits out in the middle of the sun. $85 a month. So we are on the cusp here of the change and the transition that we've talked about in the revenue stream, but we have the personal responsibility to care for those that really could get hurt by this transition. So I really, we're going to bring that forward. It's a lot of serious work and a lot of work to go to look after those in need in our community.
The other piece of it, of course, that has an impact on our future revenues. Obviously,
Right.
look where that's going. You can just
Absolutely.
that's tragic.
Absolutely.
I mean, but it's a good. Well,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
$9
I'll be watching that too.
And you're watching that too. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is fun.
I have nothing further to report. Is there any other business to come before the board? Well, thank you, everyone, and the meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.